idea to celebrate Criniere, so in memory of him, just to honor his legacy and what he did here in Grandview, because Criniere did mean a lot to a lot of us. He did help out many of the students here, people outside of school, just everybody in total. What I did whenever he had passed, the first thing I wanted to do was just write to him. I miss him so much. He helped me with a lot of things. With my personal life, school, especially geometry, I sucked at it, and he was my teacher, and he just made it easier for me. So I do want to honor that.
The day we heard about a year ago, and the sting of death in the Bible, but we know the sting of death it's been taken away by Jesus Christ, and that's Charlie's witness. And so it doesn't mean you don't feel it. It's not there. It doesn't mean what it used to before Jesus was resurrected and opened the door for all of us to have fellowship with him and with the Father. I just want to pray. Father, thank you for Charlie. Thank you for what he means to me personally. Thank you for what he means to each one of us individually, because he obviously means a lot to bring us out here together. And we just lift up your name, your holy name, that you snatched Charlie from the fire. You put him up in front of others who need someone like him, who's humble, who's hungry, who's gifted in ways that you're unveiling even before. Even now we're seeing new ways. And Lord, we just ask that you keep that work going in our hearts and in the community of Grandview and in the schools here. And we just thank you, Jesus.
And the whole class is bad. Like, everybody, when you first get in there, you had to take a practice test, and we all scored low, and he made it very clear we was low. And probably the end of summer school, we've been busting our tails, making sure we come in every day, head in the books, listening to his jokes, his music, and making sure we just took in what he was telling us. Now, we all still didn't do good, but we were better than when we first came, and he still treated us very well. When some of us are leaving and he's telling us goodbye, you could just see him just go sit back at his desk and just quickly pray for us. And sometimes you could just feel the energy walking in the room, or even just leaving the room, that Criniere is right there on your shoulder. His presence is always there. I went through so many math teachers and none of them got through me like Mr. Criniere.
Mr. Criniere you could not make him mad. You could not make him mad at you at all. I remember me and Sandra was always in his class after school, and I didn't know his name at first, so I just started calling him Mr. Clean, because I told him he looked like Mr. Clean. So I would start writing Mr. Clean all over his boards in the morning before he came into school. And I came in his classroom and I was crying and I was bawling my eyes out, and I was like, Mr. Criniere, I'm not going to graduate. I'm not going to pass this class. I don't know what to do. So he sat there with me after school and he helped me get what I needed to get done with. And I really appreciated that, because I was a troublemaker. I will say that. I was not the best student my freshman through my sophomore year of school. I didn't take school seriously. I just wanted to just play around all the time. But then coming into Mr. Criniere's classroom after school all the time and seeing that he never judged anybody for how they were. He never judged you. He saw me and he would tell me, you need to get your act together. But he would also tell me, to stay who I was and not to let anybody change me. But I remember the last time I saw Mr. Criniere was at my graduation, and he gave me a hug and he told me about how proud he was of me, and he told me that he knew I could graduate and he knew I could do it. And he also would tell me about, his high school and how he was kind of the same way. But I was just I had somebody that I connect with a lot. I could play around with Mr. Criniere all the time. And even though we always called him Mr. Clean, you know, he kept that smile on his face. He never, he,
Who was it? Somebody was like, you look like Pitbull. He brought a picture. He started putting a picture on. He put on some glasses. He was like, don't I look like him? This man will constantly people would constantly make fun of him because he'd be bald. I'll go up to him and be like, hey Charles, you a little bald. And he'd be like, I know, get out. Just that. He'll start laughing. I would not get out his class only because I loved messing with him. He would just have fun with us, everybody in class. Me and Camille would just pop in, just irritate him a little bit. His wife would call. We were like, say hi to mom. He would be like, grab the phone, answer it. We would talk to her for a little bit. She would be like, how are you guys doing?
don't forget the date nights.
Oh yeah, the Nate nights.
He'd be like, it's date night, you guys gotta go.
Every Thursday before they change it to Tuesday, he'd be like, it's date night. Where should we go? He will ask everybody. He was like, where do you think the next date night should be? And of us losing him hurts. It hurts a lot. He's helped me through so much mentally with school. Oh Lord, school. I sucked at math. And he would help me out every day. I would stay after school for an hour just for him to help me. He helped me with every little thing that I did not understand.
Mr. Criniere, a teacher named Jeff Gracier, teacher named Mr. Johnson, and we used to meet in Jeff Gracier's room after school, and we would pray. It was usually on Tuesday after school, and that's how I know Charlie. Charlie was an intense man of prayer. He prayed for this school a lot. Man, he loved the kids here. He really did, and he was passionate about that. I remember walking outside of when we had his memorial service, and I was looking down. This is the weirdest thing, but I was looking down there was a little shrub or something there, and there was a praying mantis sitting on it. And I'm like, that's Charlie. Charlie is always praying, and it made me think of him. And then I went home, and I took pictures of them. These do exist. And there was a praying mantis clinging to like my window. So I don't know if that's him saying something to me or not, but he was a great guy, and that's the image I see. It's Charlie. He was a praying man. He prayed for you guys. He prayed for this school. He loved this community. So I want to remember him as a man of prayer and a man of family and a man of faith. So
when I think of Charles, I think of like how I used to try and make him laugh, because he had a good sense of humor, and you know, those of us that were here during the COVID year, and you know, with all the Zoom things we did, and we would have like those Wednesdays, we'd have our meetings in the auditorium, but we'd have our department meetings over Zoom, and so we'd be on Zoom, and Charles would be at his desk. He'd be kind of working on something, and I would always take a note card, and I would just write MAGA, and then I would put Criniere 21, and I'd hold it up to my camera, and he'd be doing something, and I'd just be holding it, and he wouldn't be looking, and then all of a sudden he would look. I would notice he would kind of like look in, and then all of a sudden he would sit back, and I would see he would kind of grin and just be like. And then and the whole thing about it was like make algebra great again. And then all of a sudden he would look, and there would be the squint. And he'd just take a breath, and he'd laugh, and he's like, oh, Clarkson. And you know, so I miss just making him laugh like that.
My son was a freshman, and I can't even remember what class he was in, but we felt like maybe he needs to be a little more challenged. So Mr. Walker said, oh, why don't you try Charles Criniere? You know, and so he called me right away, and we were able to get him transferred into Charles' advanced geometry class. So the first time we met him was on Zoom that freshman year, but I'd heard his name for years, and the night before he passed, we saw him here at the first football game of the season, and just seeing as he started coming to the bleachers, like so many students were like, Mr. Criniere, you know, they're so happy to see him because he's over at Martin City, and so they didn't get to see him as often, and just I think I made a comment to my husband that night that, like, seeing the way those students responded to him, you just knew what kind of a man he was and what kind of a teacher he was.
can tell you like this. Man, he talked about y'all as much as he talked about his own family. Man, Eric, would you believe this? Man, this student had this problem. Man, I think I know how I'm gonna go about, like, he would plan the night before how he was gonna go about talking to this person. Just to see y'all even coming out, man, to put this together, and it just means so much. I just wanna let you guys know this. My brother got expelled from high school. All right, my brother knows, like, we know a little bit of the bottom, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's not the bottom. That's one bottom. And my brother got expelled, and he had to build back up. I mean, he would want you guys to know, like, that, you know, there was no miraculous anything happening. Like, he was putting in the work. Once he gets this scholarship from this youth, from a youth correction program, it's only $2,000. I mean, in 1998, like, $2,000 is not really bringing you you ain't getting a college, you know, you ain't doing much in college. Right. Like, so my brother basically starts off at English and math 098, non-credit courses. And he's busting his hump for 098. I don't know if y'all know what 098 is, remedial. But it's remedial.
Don't get credit for it.
Charlie was doing addition, subtraction as an 18, 19-year-old. He was learning from the ground up again. And he did that for a year and a half straight. He went crazy. I mean, he took as many non-credit courses because when he took the placement exam, he didn't place anything. He placed underneath the bottom. He placed. He turned his life at that point, and it was a straight shot. It was just incremental it was little by little that he was building up to what you saw, to what you guys got to experience. And teaching you guys was like one of his greatest passions of life. Every day that you guys struggle, learn something new, teach somebody else, man, you guys are honoring Charlie. Every time you give somebody a chance, you're honoring Charlie. You give somebody some time, you're honoring Charlie. Charlie would have wanted y'all to overcome and to understand, like, yo, just put the work in. Put the work in. It's gonna come out.
Yeah, Charlie was just always encouraging. I never knew him to be negative in any way. We saw him the night before he passed at the football game, and it was great to see him. Gave him a big old hug before we left, and yeah, he'll always be missed, but he definitely left a legacy.
Hi, I'm Linda Whitford, and I worked with Charles right over here in this building. I became the math department chair in 2008, and when I came back to start that school year, a few weeks before school actually started, there was a new principal, and he said a young man had come in sometime during the summer. I guess I should preface to this was the principal said, "Hey, we hired a new math teacher," and I'm thinking, we didn't need a new math teacher. Why did we hire a new math teacher? And he said that a young man had come in and had said, "Do you have any spots for substituting? I just like to substitute teach, you know, just kind of put it in." He said, "What would I do to go about that?" And so in the conversation with the new principal, it was Charles, obviously, and the principal found out that Charles was a math teacher, and so he had the foresight, the principal did, to know that we would need a math teacher eventually. So he hired him on the spot, basically. So that was a blessing to us in our school, and that's kind of how he got the chance. Is Charles just kind of walked through the front door, walked in the office, and said, "Hey, do you have any positions as substitute? I'd like to substitute teach," and it turned into a career. It was always a wonderful, occasion when Charlie and Megan would have their children, and I said, "Now, Charles, what number is this now?" And he goes, "Oh, it's number 8, Linda." And I said, "Charles, 8 is enough." the person in me thinking, how much is this costing them? I said, Charles, 8 is enough. And he just put this big grin on his face. He goes, oh no, Linda, 8 is great. I found out that his oldest son, Justice, was doing yard work and things like that. So I said, well, hey, have him come down and I'll have him put some mulch down at my house, And so Justice and David and Charles and I met at Lowe's. And I really got an insight as to what kind of father Charles was, because he did not just step in and do the work for those boys. He stood back and he kind of just, told them what they needed to do, and he just stood back and just kind of had his arms folded like this and was very intent, was watching them, maybe give them a little direction, but he let those boys do the work and earn the money. He didn't do the work for them. So he was teaching them a really good lesson. And when we got over to the house, again, he was going to go study. He was going to go to Starbucks because he was working on finishing up his specialist degree, which to me, it just thrilled me to death that he had worked so hard. Teaching, raising a family, doing his work with his church, and then working on his education all at the same time. It amazed me.
Had the great opportunity of working with Charles here. As I look at that football field, I have reminiscence of Charles and I out there at center field there and doing Fields of Faith. We were so excited to be able to, when we got the permission to start a chapter of FCA here at Grandview High School, and so we gathered students, and obviously even before the great words of we believe we can win came out nationally, because of the work that Charles and I did, the students started to believe that they could not only just win games but win in life. But I also am reminded, even with the sting of death, that the Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians 5:8, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. But I see Charles right now sitting right there and saying, God, I'm glad you're here, but I miss my family, so we got to take care of them. And if you look at the things that have taken place for that family, I can see Charles up there like, yes, still cheering him on, because I see the great things that he's doing even when he's not here. And that's a sign of great things, of a legacy of a life. So he motivates me to continue to be better than I think I can be. So thanks, Charles.
But I first met Charlie through Paul, and when they lived actually just down the street from us, and we went over to their house, and all these kids are running around. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is nuts, and the memory I have of that day is that I just thought, wow, Paul, you and I need to pray for Charlie and Megan, because wow, they got a lot on their platter with all these kids and working and stuff. And Charlie says, hey, Megan and I want to pray for you. And I was like, oh, okay. And so Charlie and Megan just laid hands on us and just prayed. And they just prophesied, and they just were encouraging us. I don't even remember what year it was, but we were pretty young in our marriage. It just touched my heart so much to see this man who had so much going on in his life and was concerned about us. And we teaching at Grandview High School, and I applied for a job here. I was like, yes, I get to teach with Charlie. And walked in, it's COVID year. That was my first year. Ooh, Zoom, everything. But I remember in those big meetings in the auditorium, Charlie was sitting right in front of me, and I said, Charlie! And I was so excited, because we'd get together in the morning and pray, and with a bunch of the teachers, and we were praying for you guys, praying that you would come to know the love of Jesus and come into that intimate relationship with Jesus, because that's what's going to sustain you through life. When his 10th child was born, I'm like, Charlie, number 10, is this it? Is that going to be the end? And he's like, we'll see. I thought, oh my word, what a faithful God we serve, that Charlie's only income coming in is a teacher's salary. And he was always giving to other people too.